Send your puppy for a board and train right away, immediately, before you even bring it home. Send it to a trainer.
And a lot of people do.
A lot of people do. Well, I agree with that. I would take the opposite approach. I would say build value with your puppy. Become important to your puppy.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Maltese, and this is the Pet to Pal podcast. Today, I'm joined by
Michelle Smith. I have Hellhounds.
I'm Gonz from Okami Canine.
Ryan Rowe from Noble Canine.
And I'm excited to chat with everyone today. I know we have some maybe differing styles or opinions, but I think speaking in generalities, I think most people get into dog training for the same reasons, right? We all want to help. We want to, help people improve their relationship and their quality of life with dogs. So I think open forum discussions, even for different philosophies, is always, not always, but it can be really helpful. But we're gonna find out today. So you know what? If we want to kind of go around a little bit and maybe just introduce yourself, your business, kind of how you got into it, your style and philosophy, and we'll kind of go from there. Awesome. You know what, Ryan? If you want to go first, we'll go this way.
Let's do it.
Perfect.
Let's do it. So I'm Ryan, like I mentioned. I own Noble Canine, where we board, train, day train dogs, and really just help people. Right.
Awesome.
How I got started it wasn't a straight line. It wasn't something that was a simple path to doing what I'm doing. I found myself at the University of Waterloo in a degree that I liked. I'm not going to say I hated it, but then I worked with a vet and quickly learned that no one's happy to take their dogs to the vet. At the same time, I was met with a dog trainer who is now a great friend of mine, and he still helps out, with some of the protection work that we do.
Awesome.
And I quickly realized that the work he does is great. He'd been training dogs for longer than I've been alive at the time, and that's how we kind of got started, right? He took me under the wing, and here we are. 6 years later, hurt to believe, but it's been 6 years already.
It goes fast, right?
It goes fast, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm Gonz of Okami Canine. So I deal mainly with pet dogs, and I work with a lot of mainly fearful dogs in the last couple of years. Fearful dogs, some behavior issues, some reactivity, but a lot of fearful dogs. I got into it because I had a reactive dog, just as a regular, everyday dog parent who did everything wrong at the beginning, right? And then he started to show these behaviors. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. You go online, you get information. It kind of helps. It kind of doesn't, right? You don't realize the mistakes you're making. I went to like every trainer that I could find that looked like they could help, and nobody did. So I was like, I'm done. Like, I got to figure this out myself. So I just self-learning. I started mentoring under trainers just as a dog owner, like not interested in dog training, but I'm like, I got to see what these guys are doing behind the scenes if I'm going to help my dog, because they're not really helping. So I did that for a little while, got the results that I wanted, and then started to be able to enjoy my dog a lot more. So I'm out at the park training my own dog, and people are like, hey, are you a dog trainer? No. Until one day I'm like, yeah. maybe I am. Right? So that ended up becoming what I would do as like a side job. Never planned on becoming a dog trainer. I worked in the tech industry.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's quite the transition.
very, very big transition, but I found it much more fulfilling. And so then I was like, you know what? I do enjoy doing this. I kind of want to do this for a living, see what I can make happen. And 5 years later, I think I've perfected my business strategy and approach to dog training, and here I am.
And if I remember correctly, are you doing like in-home training, or do you have a facility?
I have a small studio
Okay.
in downtown Toronto. So I do one-on-one training, a lot of coaching. I do a lot of virtual training as well. So I have a lot of clients overseas that we do virtual overnight, and mainly one-on-one. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. And Michelle, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I have a lot of dogs, and I do a lot of sports. And I do some training for a company in Barrie as well. But most of my stuff is performance-based and commercial. So I train tricks and skills and behaviors and stuff like that.
And I know labels are tough, and not everyone loves putting themselves in a box. But how would you guys describe your training styles?
Depends on the dog.
Okay.
Right? And like you said, we don't like labels because the dogs are so different. But if I were to sum it up, my one-liner would be relationship first, but we are balanced.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, I think if I were to like give a potential client the label, it would be balanced, so they know so they have an idea what they're getting into. But very much like you're saying, is like it depends on the dog. Some dogs I'm like completely force-free, right? Working with a lot of fearful dogs. Some dogs I'm like, you're gonna need a little bit more pressure.
Sure.
Some dogs we got to balance it out a little bit more. So I would call myself a relationship-based trainer because we're always aiming to improve that relationship we have with the dog. But for other people, I'd be like, I'm balanced, just to make it easy.
Sure. That makes sense. And Michelle?
Oh man, make me go last. I sound like a parrot. So oftentimes, if people ask me, I will say that I am a positive reinforcement-based trainer because basically everything I teach starts with positive reinforcement. But in my training philosophy, there is place for structure, punishment, and criteria.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think, the relationship is the base of any good training, right? I know, we've talked about this before, and I think it's a little bit of a buzz term these days, and I think maybe the average pet parent thinks they have a good relationship with their dog. They're like, hey, I give my dog cookies and kisses and snuggle with them. Like, what do you mean we don't have a good relationship, right? And it can be a little uncomfortable to tell people that because you don't want to say, like, it's not about love. It's not that you don't love your dog doesn't love you, but, the leadership and everything else that goes into that. So what do you guys think, goes into that term relationship, and how can we help people improve the relationship with their dogs?
So I think a good relationship doesn't necessarily mean it's a healthy relationship.
Okay.
Right. I think a healthy would have balance, mutual respect between the animal and the human. But when people think they have a good relationship with the dog, it's usually one-sided, where it's really good for the dog, but it's not as good for the human.
Gotcha. And it might be what makes you feel good,
good.
right? Like, yeah, you feel good giving your dog cookies and letting him, just let him do whatever. Right? But, maybe your dog is craving a job or structure or, boundaries or whatever it might be, right? Sorry, guys, do you want to say something?
Yeah. One of the ways that I kind of like reframe it for a lot of clients is that they think they have that good relationship, right? But then I really bring into the human relationship aspect. Like, there's a lot of talk in dog training, like, oh, dogs aren't humans or whatever. But I'm like, but human analogies really make sense to clients. So I'm like, any healthy human relationship you have is balanced. There's good, there's bad. You overcome difficulties. That strengthens your relationship. If you're one-sided and just like love bombing the other person all the time, it's not a healthy relationship, right?
That's
and
true.
then behavior issues usually come from that, right?
Yeah.
So I usually like remind people like the best relationships you have with other humans in your life are balanced. So we got to look for that with our dogs.
It's true. And, think of like your best friends, right? Your best friends are people you're not afraid to say, like, hey, dude, like, what are you doing? Cut that shit out. You got to be able to like keep it real with them once in a while. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to fracture your relationship, but it has to be healthy. It has to be, not to use too much therapy speak, but also we don't always have to go in, or feel free to like jump in whenever. We don't have to go around the clock.
It's my turn.
Yeah, it's your turn.
For me, I think clear structure is really important because I have a lot of dogs and it can be chaos. So most dog trainers end up having multiple dogs, and you have to know how to control your environment, manage your environment, manage their environment. So for me, having a good relationship means that our expectations are clear and they are consistent, and we don't have to argue about them.
Yeah, I think clear expectations is a big one, right? Because most people want their dog to do this or that, but it's like, A, you've never reinforced that behavior. And so your dog's thinking like, okay, you tell them no going on the couch. And the dog's like, okay, but first of all, I don't really know what I did wrong. And second of all, you haven't shown me what you want instead, right? So if I don't know what you expect from me, then it's not my fault if I'm not meeting those expectations, right? How do you guys balance, structure versus freedom, right? I know even for me, when I got Xena and then had like a multi-dog household, that was an adjustment because I had never really had a multi-dog home before that. Or even now, like that I'm slowly starting to offer board and trains. It is a little bit of an adjustment going from a single dog home to a multi-dog home. So it doesn't have to be for a multi-dog home, but how do you guys balance like structure versus freedom, whether it's with your own dogs or with your clients?
Has to be earned, right? That structured freedom that we give our dogs is something that they have to earn. If I'm getting a puppy, it's not just handed to them right away. That's a recipe for disaster.
Totally.
And dogs don't understand gray, right? Like in my opinion, if you have gray zones where you can go up on the couch, at night, but in the mornings you can't go on the couch, it's not understandable.
Yeah,
right? So it's consistent, like Michelle mentioned, right? Just keeping
the expectations become unclear.
That's
right. Absolutely.
That's right.
So that's a good point.
I think to add to that, like I think clarity is the most important part, right? So structure is one thing, and I agree dogs should have structure, right? And they're not going to make the right decision necessarily all the time because they don't know what it is that we want, and they're not used to our expectations of them.
They're impulsive.
And they're impulsive, right? So structure is part of it, but I think if you create a very clear relationship with them and can communicate with them reliably, then it removes a little bit of that gray area.
Yep.
Or even when they are still impulsive or a little bit confused or being a little bit kind of just like, let's push the boundaries right now. It's
Which they will.
Which they will. It's easier to be like, actually, don't do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so for me, structure is like something that happens at the beginning. Then we build that relationship, we create more clarity, and then freedom is earned, absolutely. And then as reliable as they become, that's how much freedom they get.
That's right.
So I have multiple dogs, and I board quite often. So at any given week, I have 6 or 7 dogs staying with me. And instead of being like, you're all going to be on place for 2 hours and you're going to be in your crates for 4 hours, I'm like, well, let's build some training into these dogs. And I'm like, now let's have you explore so that I can tell you that was beyond the boundaries of what you should have done. And then they go, cool, got it. Right? And then we can give them more freedom. For me, at the end of the day, my goal is the dog should have more freedom, not less, if we're doing our job.
I agree, and I think that's the juxtaposition that maybe the average person or a lot of positive leaning people, will kind of, the hill that they'll kind of die on a little bit is the juxtaposition that giving a dog more rules, more structures, more boundaries then allows them to have more freedom because now they're trustworthy.
Right? They usually start with too much freedom.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know why it's so difficult.
And that's the biggest mistake I see people make with like a puppy early on, right? Don't want to use a leash in the house, don't want to use a crate, don't want to use a baby gate. They just give freedom right away.
Well,
and
let's break that down a little bit. They don't do those things because they want their dog to have freedom. They don't do those things because it's inconvenient for them.
And I think yes, and it's inconvenient in the sense of they don't like how it makes them feel when their dog is crying in the crate. Oh, it's so sad. Let them out, right? So it's an inconvenience
and the time
thing.
thing. It's like, well, I have to do this, and your dog is now secondary because they're interrupting your regular pattern.
Yep. I think also from what I've experienced over the years doing this is a lot of people get a puppy expecting a dog, right? And it's almost like 2 different species. Like a puppy is a newborn baby that needs supervision or limited space or whatever. Well, yeah, once your dog is trustworthy, sure, my dog goes on the couch or is allowed to have free roam because she's earned that.
That's right.
And because we've put that foundation in, right? But yeah, I think a lot of people get a puppy expecting a dog. And, that's something we got to like...
Bridge the gap.
Exactly, yeah, which can be difficult, right? Yeah. What are some kind of foundational things that you guys, would preach to any client, whatever issues they're dealing with? What's something you think like, this is something I'd like to preach to everybody?
Send your puppy for a board and train right away, immediately, before you even bring it home. Send it to a trainer.
And a lot of people do.
A lot of people do. Well, I agree with that. I would take the opposite approach. I would say build value with your puppy. Become important to your puppy.
right. Yeah.
Because then when you tell them, don't do that shit, do this other stuff instead,
Yeah.
they're more likely to do it. Right?
Yeah.
So build value. Day one, start building value with your puppy.
Like
Go to the dog
engagement.
park,
Yep.
right? Just treat them. Just give them a treat. Look at them. They look at you. Say, "Good boy." Boom. Pop a treat. Right.
Absolutely.
Don't go into obedience. Don't start going like, "I want to take my puppy on walks. I want everybody to meet my puppy." Forget all of that. You become the most valuable person to your puppy. Everything becomes easy.
Well, even if it's not a puppy, like people are getting rescue dogs like left, right, and center that are like 3 years old, and that's number one thing you should do for sure. The reason I said you should send your puppy to a board and train is because most people do not want to do the crate training.
Correct.
They do not want to understand the puppy, and less breeders are crate training their puppies.
That's right.
Yeah.
So good breeders will crate train puppies. Puppies will come home
trained already.
independent,
Yeah.
confident. They will come home with skills. They will have impulse control. They will have understanding. And that will make your life so easy.
Breeders like that are so few and far between.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, if you have not had a dog before or it's been a long time since you've had a dog, sending your puppy for a board and train just to make that transition easier for you so that both of you can coexist and not be stressed out. Super valuable. I don't even do those. I'm not preaching them for me. I'm preaching them because when you have a puppy that is crate trained and is stable and understands that, it makes your life and your relationship building with them so much simpler.
For sure. And just to circle back to your question, Matthew, it really depends. I like to meet my clients where they're at. I will ask them. So instead of telling them this is what you need to do, I like to ask them, right? Are you ready to commit to this dog? You've got a rescue with God knows how many ghosts in the closet. Are you ready
Good way to put it.
right. Are you ready to expose them and work on them for however long it may be?
Yeah.
So I like to ask them, meet them where they're at.
And
You know what? Client says they don't have time, board and train. Maybe a day train that we offer. Just try to meet them where we're at.
It's
or
not a
they're
one
at.
size fits all for sure. And maybe to kind of piggyback off that, what is maybe something you guys look at, initially when you're evaluating a dog or a pup or whatever? When you go to a new client, what are you looking for when you're evaluating that dog?
So I'll answer first only because this might be the weirdest answer.
Okay, perfect. Let's start there then.
I don't do evaluations.
Okay.
I don't do any evaluations. People go, I need help with this. I go, cool, this is when we can get started, right? Because if I do an evaluation, two things might happen, right? I might get the wrong idea about the owners or the dog because we're putting them in a very kind of like manufactured situation, right? Come to my place, let's see what your dog is like. Dog's never been there before. That's not going to give me an accurate picture. Or I'm going to go to the client's place, right? And they're going to feel a certain comfort or discomfort that I'm there and they've never met me before. So I don't think I'll get an accurate picture. So for me, I don't do evaluations. I go, this is what we're going to do. These are the things we're going to work on. And so they get a high level understanding of what I want to accomplish based on what their goals are. And then the technical details about how we're going to do that, I take care of that behind the scenes. So in our lessons, I'll break it down one way for one dog, another way for a different client. This client is older, they can't do the same type of stuff. This client only has 1 hour a day. This client has this weird schedule. So then we switch it up behind the scenes.
Okay. That's a good point. What about for you guys? What do you...
I actually got some questions about that.
We'll get into it.
I know for me,
Everybody's doing it now. No more evaluation.
I look at a dog's confidence level,
For sure.
right? Because I think that's going to tell me a lot about, are we dealing with aggression or fear reactivity, or are they going to shut down if I do, approach it a certain way, right? So for me, I try to just look at where's this dog coming in confidence wise, and then I kind of pivot from there. But yeah, Ryan, I'm curious your thoughts on Gonz's answer there. I know you have some things to say.
No, you're right. In an evaluation, they are out of their element. They're not going to react the same. For me, an evaluation is to get to know the owner, their goals.
Yep.
And then based on
Good point.
previous experience, previous dogs that we've trained, what is something that we can do, whether it's a service or redirecting them into something else. How can we get them the success that they need? Right?
Yeah.
So it's just a conversation for me. I'm not really looking to see what the dog is exhibiting right off the bat. We'll get them into sessions. We may do in-homes if we have to, and then go from there. And we're pretty flexible too, right? So if, let's say, we started off, and we do this all the time, where we start off with a board and train, dog's not doing so well or just not adjusting so well, we'll switch them into privates. Or vice versa. We start off with privates, client comes back the next week, we didn't get much work done. Okay, let's sit down and talk about a board and train. We can do it for you.
Yep. And I think that's good, that willingness to adjust, right? Because a lot of people get locked into, again, there's a lot of ego in the training world that people don't want to maybe admit, maybe my initial approach wasn't the best way. Maybe let's, because that's, it's not admitting defeat, but it's admitting maybe I was wrong initially, or, and a lot of people just don't want to think that way about themselves or whatever. So I think it's good to be able to do that, right? It's a good mindset.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, so my perspective is maybe a little bit different because it's been a long time since I've offered private training. But when we do group classes, there's only so much that you can offer to a group of humans in 50 minutes. So I have curriculums, and based off of the curriculums and the dog's ability to fulfill the curriculums, you can sort of piece together things for them, or how can you try it differently, or your dog isn't functioning here, so when you practice it at home, practice it this way and see how your dog does. So when we meet dogs for the first time, if I'm going to teach something sport related, really you kind of have to see the dog. So people will say, I want to work on this. And I say, okay, show me what you do.
Yep.
Just go do your thing. Right. And I just watch them, and they go out there and they're healing, or they're throwing a Frisbee, or they're doing whatever. And I'll watch them for 5 minutes or so, depending on how much time we have and what they're practicing. And then I'll say, okay, put your dog away. And they'll put their dog away, and then we'll talk about what I see.
For sure.
Because a lot of what goes on, at least for me, if you're doing behavior modification stuff, for sure, it's a lot about the dog. But to fix the dog, we have to fix the human, and the human is always the dumb end of the leash. So we have to talk about the things that I'm observing. So I will observe the dog, and I will observe the human, and then I have to talk to them about how we can change things.
Dogs don't lie, people do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny because, I usually use the example, when I was younger, I used to take guitar lessons, and I would never practice. And I would I'll just wing it. And when I would show up for my lesson the next week, he'd be like, did you practice a song? I'm like, yeah, I did. And in 3 minutes, if I can't play the song from last week, well, then I didn't practice that much, you know? So I always tell clients the same thing. Like, you can tell me you practice, but your dog's going to show me in a minute if you did or not. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think that also goes back to kind of what you're saying about the board and trains, right? Is, you know, don't get me wrong, board and trains are very helpful and they can be great. But I think knowing what's best for you in your situation, right? So, yeah, if you don't want to deal with, you know, a puppy that needs crate training and potty training, whatever, maybe a board and train is a good option. Yeah. Also, maybe a rescue is a good option. Everyone thinks they want a puppy. There's tons of dogs at the shelter that are already potty trained, already crate trained, already, you know, you think you want a puppy, but if you don't want puppy problems, there's rescues available that don't have that.
I tell people all the time, look for a dog that's like 3 years old. You have a dog that is now who it's going to be fundamentally. For the most part of the rest of its life. You can have a dog with problems and know what those problems are because they're already there. But you could have a puppy and you have so many unknowns, health unknowns, behavior unknowns, structure unknowns, like
the canine casino.
That's a good way to put it.
You're spinning the wheel. You don't know.
Yeah. And I think even to go, again, back to the board and trains, again, they can be very helpful, but I think also there's a misconception that, okay, I'm just going to send my dog away for a month and it's going to come back perfect and I'm not going to have to do any work. And, you know, I want to really dispel that as well because, you know, again, I'll speak for myself. As a trainer, I can work on lots of things with your dog. I can work on obedience and sit and heel and down and crate training and potty training, whatever. But what I can't do is build your relationship with your dog. Only you can do that, right? So as much as we can kind of, you know, kickstart it and get that snowball rolling, unless you're going to continue carrying the baton when we hand it off to you, your board and train is going to be a waste of money, right? And you should know that going in.
I agree with you, but part of what I want to add to that is that it's very difficult to teach two separate beings how to get to the same behavior at the same time. So if I already know how to teach the behavior, or I know how to read the dog, or I know how to do whatever. If I can show that dog how to do this thing, the dog already knows. The dog now has a basis of understanding for what I expect. Then I can say, this is how we do it. The dog already knows now, so the human can learn. But to teach both of them how to do something they've never done before is super hard. So for me, board and trains or however day trains, however you want to do it, is really helpful because then you're both not frustrated by trying to get to the end result that neither of you understands.
For sure. And that's part of it. In the evaluation, I like to just gauge if the client is capable of taking information and applying it right away.
That's a good point.
You know, some clients are just not capable, and not to knock on any clients out there. It's just a skill. Like I can't do open heart surgery. I just can't. I can do it, but it won't go so well. Right? So it's just knowing the client in, you know, an hour-long evaluation, however long we've got, and seeing if they need a board and train, we'll steer them towards that. If they're capable, we're blessed to have so many dedicated clients that are open to learning. They're going above and beyond. Right, and
that's the hard part, right? And I know you guys can speak to this, but you know, again, not in a cocky way. I'm sure you guys all feel the same. You can go to a 3-year-old dog and teach sit in 5 minutes. That's not the hard part, right? No. The hard part is if we can't get the owner to change how they interact with this dog on a daily basis, then they're not going to have long-lasting change, right? So that's the hardest part sometimes is, you know, not necessarily the dog, is getting the owners to literally change their lifestyle, change how they think about dogs. If you have somebody that thinks crates are cruel or this or that, like I have to rewire your brain before we even get to this dog.
Yeah,
you know?
Or problem solve the approach to meet their way of thinking. Like, if you don't believe in crates, great, but like, how are we going to get to this end result then? Like, we shouldn't have to use a crate. We should be able to think outside the box enough. But if it's because your dog eats everything, what's the alternative to a crate? We have to come up with something. It doesn't have to be a crate, but what can we do? So for us, I mean, we also have to know not to be inside this, oh, this is the way I want to do it.
Yes.
Because sure, the way you want to do it, great, but that's not necessarily how it should be done. So being able to change your approach
for adaptable.
For different situations and different belief systems, because like I'm all for it if you don't want to tell your dog no, but your dog's going to have a hard time differentiating the expectation if you can't tell your dog when they're making a mistake.
That all kind of that's all related, because whether it's board and train one-on-one or whatever, probably the biggest difficulty for dog trainers is the human aspect, right? Always. So I think there's always going to be an element of either identifying what that client is going to be like, what you're going to be able to do with that client, what their skill set is, education, right? Like you need to get on board with this, or they're not going to be on board with this. So I need to pose this problem to them in a way where they will want to overcome that problem.
Big part is just motivating them.
Motivating them.
coaching them
That's-
into.
How do you guys
doing
go
things,
about that?
right?
If you have
That's
a
the key.
client, like will you just say like, will you fire a client? Be like, you know what, this person's just not a good fit for me, or they're not practicing enough, or how do you kind of go about motivating a client that maybe is struggling?
For me, it's code switching.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is like I'll get like this 25-year-old guy with this big bully mix, right, and his girlfriend. I'm gonna talk like that guy.
Okay.
Right? And not like fakely,
Yeah.
like I can kind of relate to that. Like
It's a good skill to know how to read the room, and
so like,
talk
so I won't give him any science about dog training. I'm not going to use words like reward or reinforcement. I'm going to use words that he can relate to, right? And be like, yo, just tell him to do it.
kind of meeting them where they're at.
That's right.
Right? Or
Right,
be
meeting
like,
them where they're at.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Like, yo, just dap them up real quick, right? Like, I'm going to use that kind of language, with him, right? And then I'm going to work with like a lawyer.
I don't even know what that means. I'm trying to decode this as you're talking.
So then I'll have to code switch for you. So,
Google Translate can't help you with that
From
one.
the city.
ChatGPT. So I work with like a lawyer and her husband, right? And then I change completely
up.
my tone of voice and my vernacular and everything, right? And they go, okay, cool, this guy kind of understands us, so maybe we should pay a little bit more attention to him, right?
And
Yeah,
now
when
that's
I talk-
something we have to teach our trainers to do that with their clients too, right? Our trainers are great. They'll train the dogs. They know exactly what they're doing. But to be able to identify with different types of people, it's really a learned skill. And Chris, our manager, is great at that, right? And
Yeah.
that's something we try to really not manufacture per se, but really just make better essentially within our trainers too, right? So
And those are, these are all separate skills, right? Like I'll just speak for myself, but I've known trainers that are really good at working with dogs, but are maybe not so good at working with the owner or no, you're good.
No.
I've taken your group class. I know what you're like. Maybe they're not as good at communicating and teaching the owner, or vice versa. You have, maybe people that are very charismatic and good talkers, but maybe aren't as good with the dog, right? Or maybe they're good at those, but maybe they don't run a great business, right? Because that's a whole separate skill. So
Yeah.
I think, finding, that balance of marrying all those skills, right? Because first you're communicating to an animal that doesn't know your expectations, doesn't speak English. You're getting them to have that light bulb of what you want. Then you're communicating to the owner what you're doing and how to replicate it on a day-to-day basis. And that can be challenging, right? That can be hard for a lot of people to overcome. But Gonz, I think you're right. I definitely adjust as well. When I'm talking to my Italian paisans, I might, have a couple different inflections on my tone, so you gotta adjust. But
That also kind of like points out like a lot of things that like really good dog trainers do or are is like well versed in a lot of things, and it doesn't even have to be related to training in any way, right? But like a lot of the trainers that I've met, I don't know you guys very well yet, but you seem like you know what we're talking about, right? But good trainers are.
Till you make it big.
that's part of we were
Trainers
just talking
maybe
about
fake it a
imposter
little bit,
syndrome. Yeah.
But good trainers are into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just like, okay, I learned this kind of like science-based approach to dog training, and this is everything that I am. They're like, there are a lot of other things. They have a wide variety of interests that help them identify these situations in a training scenario.
Obviously a little different, but I remember way back when I was going to go into policing the canine unit, when I was looking into getting into policing and I was 19, 20, whatever, they basically said, like, we don't hire people until they're at least like 24, 25. They said, go do some other things. Go be a mechanic, go get some other skills, and then come back. And I think it's kind of the same thing as getting that like real world life experience will really help you when you're trying to problem solve a behavior, when you're reading body language, when you're learning how to talk to different people, or, even for one-on-ones, like, when you go to somebody's house, you don't know what you're walking into. Like I've been to some sketchy environments or houses with bullet holes in the window or like, whatever, like, and you have to adapt as a person. Like, okay, what am I going to do here? Right? How can I help? How can I affect the situation? And I think that's a good skill to be able to kind of have that chameleon in you a little bit. Right.
I want to add a little bit of something to that because we were talking about we do all of these things. I compete and perform a lot with my dogs. So even though I like training dogs, I am practicing my skill. I am showcasing my ability under pressure and under scrutiny. And for me, being able to do that is proof that I'm a good dog trainer. Like I could train 700 pet dogs a week and not be as good as I could be by doing what I'm doing. Not to say that everybody needs to compete, but like it is super valuable for me to do that. And it gives me a lot of experience. Like, how can I change this behavior in this situation under this amount of pressure or arousal or whatever? So seeing people who are dog trainers that have trained dogs should be your like number one go-to if you're looking for a dog trainer, because I know there's so many dog trainers that maybe don't even have a dog, or they train at a huge facility where...
Is that a red flag, you think?
If they don't have a
trainer
dog?
doesn't have a dog? Yeah.
I don't understand how that's even like possible unless they've been in the industry for like 50 or 60 years and they just don't have a dog anymore.
For sure.
But like, if you're going to a dog trainer, you should be able to see their skill, their proof of what they're doing and how they get there, because I can't fake teaching my dog how to do this behavior if I'm doing it across the nation or on TV or under a judging system.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that people should try more of, is
sure.
trying different sports with their dogs. Even if like I'm not a competitive person, I don't care about ribbons or winning or anything. For me, I thrive with that goal. Like, I'm such a lazy trainer. If I don't have a goal of something to do, like, I'm just like, why would I train this? It's like,
that's fair.
I need to train this because Sunday I'm going to do it on TV.
Yeah, and I think it allows you to like flex a different muscle, right? Like again, and I'll say I'm a pet dog trainer. That's mostly what I do, right? So I'm kind of, it's like going to the gym, but only doing biceps every day. Right. I think it's good to like mix in a leg day, mix in a, whatever. I think learning, like we said, learning all these different skills, it's never going to hinder your abilities. It's only going to help it. Right.
For sure.
What's maybe one thing that you've changed your mind about in training in terms of, in the last couple of years? Like,
Prong collars and e-collars.
You don't like them anymore? Now you do.
So when I got my Dutch Shepherd, she's a rescue dog, and she was scared of everything. And I had never had a reason to use a prong or an e-collar before that. I had kettle dogs and wiener dogs. I just never needed them.
Yep.
And she's so sensitive to me that correcting her, even if I said no, it was earth-shattering. Like, I could say it like that, no. And she would spiral out of control with, like, making more mistakes, and she just could not handle any kind of correction from me. So when I was told, try using the e-collar, I was like, I am very afraid to do this because she is already scared of lots of things. Yep. I don't want there to be so much negative fallout. But because of how I had perceived e-collars to be used specifically for correction and suppression of behavior, which I was incorrect about, I learned a better way to implement it, and it was game-changing for this dog because she could be gently reminded of a task and not have it associated with me. And it was like, it was incredible. Like, I pretty much never use it, but like just to have my mind opened to a better way of something that I was just so wrong about. I was just wrong about it. Like,
Yeah, no, that's a good answer.
I didn't have to, I was kind of always interested in the e-collar. I just want to kind of like add to that. I work with a lot of fearful dogs, and the e-collar is the game changer for a lot of them, for the reasons that you mentioned. It can be such a precise tool. Yeah. Sadly, the perception from a lot of people is that it's like this big bad hammer you're swinging.
Well, also the way people use it, because they are using it on purpose to suppress and eliminate behaviors, and it becomes a hammer instead of a scalpel.
Exactly.
And I think that if people are interested to use an e-collar, it is super important for them to understand how to use it. And when you're just learning to train, this is like similar to clicker training. If you can't hold the leash and the treats and know what the dog is doing, you can't also click. Yeah. It's like too many things for people.
That's right.
But definitely like that's for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I've had probably 2 switches in like my career as a dog trainer, like early on, again, as a dog owner. The first switch was like, hey, maybe this positive reinforcement isn't the answer. That was the first switch. Because I was like, no, this makes sense to me. I don't want to be mean to my dog. I don't want to hurt my dog.
And I think that's a
common, very common.
Yeah, attitude.
So the first switch was like, actually, my dog needs a little discipline. Like maybe that was the missing part all along that led to the behavior issue, right? So that was my first switch. And then I had to kind of bounce back because then I went overboard on that side, right? I went from like,
You felt powerful.
I didn't at all. I didn't at all. I felt confused, right? Power didn't come into it. Power comes from knowledge, right? And so lack of knowledge makes confusion. So I was confused. I was like, I like that he's not doing this shit anymore. I like that he's not trying to bite my hand off. Sure. You can see the bite marks. I like that he's not trying to tear that dog's throat open anymore. But he looks depressed. Yeah. I don't get that part. Why is that happening, right? So then I was like, all right, I went too far this other direction. So then the second switch for me is like, wait a minute, there is a balance. There is room for both. And one doesn't have to mean one thing all the time.
Totally.
And the other side doesn't have to mean the other thing all the time.
We could be here all day talking about it's changed. In fact, it's changing every day.
But I think that's healthy. I think if you've been in this, I don't know, we've all been in different years, but if your philosophy or growth hasn't changed in years, again, I think that's more of a red flag than you're the pendulum should be moving a little bit as you gain more knowledge, as, like, I want you to finish your answer, but I'll even say for me, like the e-collar, but for different reasons. I just don't like technology. I'm not good with technology. I don't want to learn a new piece of tech. I hate my phone. I don't want to, when I make a joke before, but when iPhone got rid of the home button, like my life for like 6 months was ruined. Like I was very upset, right? So like, I'm just having to get over that and learn like, okay, learning this new tool allows me to take my training to a different level that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was vehemently against this thing, right? So
it's like being unwilling to use a ratchet to fix your car.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, I don't want to. I'm only going to use a wrench.
Exactly.
You're
exactly. But sorry, Ryan, you're saying, I know we could be here for a long time, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
We're changing every day. A dog might teach me something today that I didn't really know yesterday, or an approach that maybe someone I'm working with brings up to me. So we're changing constantly. But what I would even touch on is just the business side of things. Right? What changed for me is I can't do everything myself.
Yeah.
Right. So we're blessed to have a very good team where we bounce ideas off of each other. So our clients aren't just getting me. Yeah. They're not just getting Chris. They're getting a team.
That's a good point.
Them, right? And
that's a good point.
Our kennel techs, our apprentices bring up so many good ideas. Right. So switching that mindset, just my mindset kind of switched to, you know what, maybe I can't do everything. Right? Maybe I have to depend on other people, and that's scary.
Yeah, and it is because eventually,
especially as a business owner,
growth.
It's my name on the line, right? So.
Yeah, growth is hard, and it's something I've struggled with. And just this previous year, I've expanded my team a little bit, but trusting someone at some point, like you can't. But it's hard to grow when you're just one person. Like you can only do so much. There's only so many hours in a day. You only have two hands, right? So I think that's a really good answer because that's something that I've struggled with too, and have slowly kind of found that bridge. I want to touch on something you mentioned as well, Michelle, in terms of like when you're saying a lot of people do use the e-collar for suppression, right? Obviously, it can be used for correction and suppression, and that can be helpful, but it's not the only way to use it, right? Like you said, use it more as a gas pedal sometimes. But I also want to address, again, not specifically with e-collars, just in general, there is that narrative a little bit that, mostly comes from the positive side that, you don't want to suppress your dog's behavior. You don't want to suppress their emotions and suppress their, and I think that's got a little bit of a bad rap. I don't think suppression is necessarily a bad thing, especially if your dog is demonstrating potentially dangerous behaviors, right? Before you even have mental space to build an alternative behavior, I need to make this behavior stop, right? So if your dog, right, I need that to simmer before I can reward an engagement, before I can reward, whatever. So I do think that, there's this push to like never suppress, but I think some suppression allows for the mental space to build something alternative. Right? I don't know if you guys agree with that or not. Right. That's just my opinion.
Especially if a dog's coming in with years of reward history with the same behavior.
Yeah.
If it's a behavior like card chasing.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Right. It is that dog's nature. It is self-rewarding. Right.
Yep.
So sometimes you have to suppress certain dangerous behaviors.
Totally. Yeah.
Right.
I think maybe semantics, but when I hear suppression, I think that we are just sort of keeping it below the surface. So something becomes less predictable if it is suppressed. So if I am suppressing something in my dog, is it going to show back up when I don't have the ability to control it? So when I think about suppression, I don't want to suppress something necessarily. I agree that we want to eliminate behavior, but I don't necessarily want to suppress something. I want to change or eliminate or redirect something. But for me, when I hear suppression, I am always worried that I am out of control, that it's out of control then if I'm suppressing it. So if I can frame the context of behavior into how can I change the behavior? Instead of the barking, what can I get? So by correcting the behavior, I get like a redirection to something, whether it's they stop barking and they look at you like, oh, what the heck, or whatever. But I don't want to just have the fear, which is kind of how I relate suppression, fear of doing the behavior, because then it becomes less controllable. So barking, I can control. I can control the dog if it's outwardly barking, and I can see the cause and reaction of behavior. I want to change it. Sure. I don't want to make the dog afraid to do that behavior because then I don't know what's coming next. Mm-hmm. So just when we talk about, again, like I said, it's semantics, sure, but it can be hard to convey that kind of information when we talk about stuff, especially with tools, because if we say we're using this tool to suppress the behavior, or are we using this tool to eliminate the behavior, or are we using this tool to activate a behavior? So it's hard when we talk to other people who don't necessarily know, or even like we all know, but we're still like, you say suppress, and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to suppress. Because that's just the emotion that comes for me from that word. Like, but I understand.
It does have a negative connotation attached to it. And that's kind of why I wanted to address it, because I don't always think it is necessarily negative. It's just more of like the dog has, like you said, has had this behavior, and now this behavior has become instinct and pattern and routine. And so if I can suppress that initially, and now they're thinking, okay, the last 5 times I did this behavior, that didn't really pay off. Okay, what am I supposed to do now? So now their brain is thinking like, okay, do you want this? Do you want, maybe they're going to offer me something that then I can capture, right? But I think for me personally, if I don't suppress that initially, then there's no reason for them to not.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm just saying the terminology that we're using. For me, when you say suppress becomes a dangerous word for me. Like, I don't want to suppress something. I want to eliminate something or change something, but I don't want to suppress it because that means I'm just burying it.
I think suppress for me is like the first step to eliminating it.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that. So like suppression is different than stopping a behavior.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think the important thing though, I think is as soon as you start talking about what suppression is, whether you like it or not, or how do you identify it, you're already outside of the category that people that would unintentionally suppress.
Right.
That's where the bad training happens.
We already know that we're doing it on purpose or not.
Exactly, right? Because then you have a lot of trainers that like maybe don't have as much experience as they should before working with some kind of behavior issue, and they go to some weekend workshop where they see a dog get lit up on an e-collar, and they go, cool, I'm going to implement that in my training now, right? And they don't realize that they start working with client dogs and they're suppressing behavior. They're not really using the tool in a motivational way. They don't realize what suppression is. Right? Those are the trainers that are suppressing, most likely. Yep. And then if we're having a discussion between like, I need to stop a behavior initially so that I can reteach the dog, so I can make the dog safe and then remotivate them, then I think we're already in a pretty safe space to be like, I'm probably not using suppression if that's what I'm talking about, you know?
Yeah, and I think suppression in that kind of situation, people think if they just light the dog up that the behavior is stopped, but really it's just been suppressed. And then that can look like obedience, but that's really maybe a dog that's shut down, right? Like, oh, look how calm they're being now. But that's just a dog that's fearful to make their next move because they think everything they're doing is going to get them,
blasted.
Exactly. Right. And I think that's where, again, you look at some of these social media and it's, look at controversial. You look at a guy like Dog Daddy. Right, and the videos he puts out where it's like, and then all of a sudden, crank, and oh look, now it's
shut down.
It shit itself and it's walking around nicely. That's great, right? And it looks like obedience, but is it, or is that just a dog that has been?
Anybody who watches those videos that knows anything about dogs can see how terrified every single one of those dogs is. Every single one of those dogs is so afraid the whole time the video is taking place. They are showing aggression because they're afraid, and then they're shut down because they're afraid.
Yeah, a lot of those are fear case. I think what for me, I remember, I think I listened to him on Ivan's podcast, and again, I had ideas about not to make the Dog Daddy thing, but I had ideas from his videos based on I don't really love that or whatever. And it did humanize him a little bit in the sense of, I think he mentioned on the podcast, he's like, these are dogs that are coming to this workshop because they're on their last leg. He said, if I had 6 weeks to work with this dog, sure, I would reinforce them coming closer. He's like, I am with these dogs for 2 days. He's like, and I need to get this result quickly.
Within an hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do get that. I get where he's coming from in that sense. Is it my favorite form of training or whatever? No.
It's just not ethical.
Yeah.
Like even if you set yourself up for a workshop where you have 2 days to work with these dogs, it's unethical. You're doing it for money and for clout.
Yeah.
You're not doing it because the dog needs that. Like
I might butcher it, but if I'm paraphrasing correctly, I think he was saying something like, these are dogs that aren't able to go to the vet and they can't be touched. So, I'll have to be the guinea pig and I'll have to do this and show them that, look, being touched isn't so bad, right? And I think that's kind of how he was framing it. Whatever our opinions are on that is fine. But
justifying his approach because it's a time-based thing is horrible.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, my dog, I can't take him to the vet. He can't be touched. Cool. Don't take him to the vet for a bit.
Yeah.
Let's actually work on this, right? Let's not make him more terrified of the vet or of being handled or whatever.
And medicate your dog.
Medicate your dog. There are other, manage. You can manage before you train. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah, management
right?
is usually and I think maybe that's where the suppression thing goes.
The excuse that people like him use, like these people are on their last leg, right? They have no other hope or whatever. Not an excuse to do what you're doing. It's still wrong. It's not ethical, right? The ethical thing would be like, I get that you've allowed this to happen for 2-3 years and you're gonna have to get rid of this dog. Cool. Here's a trainer who'll take your dog in for a board and train for a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. There's other options.
Hey, let's set up a GoFundMe if you can't afford the training. There are ways that you can get around that. Of course. So I don't think that ever justifies that kind of training. And that's definitely
it's so
suppression.
traumatic.
It's traumatic to the dog.
Yeah, and I think flaunting it
to a degree, it's traumatic to the client
as well, right?
It's traumatic to the client as well. And without getting into too much detail, I kind of experienced that as a dog owner. It's not to the same degree, but to a degree. And in the moment, because you're just so frustrated with how bad life is, right? You're like, okay, I guess I'll let this guy do this.
Yeah, I think this guy's the expert. I'm at my wit's end. And let him do what he's going to do.
You're like, okay, sweet. Look, my dog's not doing all that stuff anymore. But there's something inside of you going like, I don't know how I feel about that, right? So I don't think that anybody that goes to those workshops is actually satisfied 2 days later. No. I really don't, because the dog is probably acting up again, for sure. Of course. 100, maybe even worse. And then the emotional aspect to the human, they're probably like, ooh, I don't know if we should have done that. But he doesn't care because he's just going around city to city.
He's all over the world, right? It's just taking advantage of, in my opinion, not to talk bad about
no,
someone behind their back. This isn't about dog daddy.
No.
I hope he watches the podcast.
It's just taking advantage of the untrained eye. People that don't know what they're seeing, and then imposing a 2-day time frame on them. It's self-imposed. Yeah. Who's saying you only have 2 days to work with it?
And that's where I think people then expect these instant gratification results because they see just before and afters. Oh, look, one correction and my dog now is
erases 6 years of mistakes. Yeah, no.
Exactly.
Well, sometimes it can.
It can.
Sometimes it can, but it has to be ethical. It has to be fair, and it has to be clear.
And then there's follow through as well. Which with a 2-day workshop, you're not getting follow through unless he does virtual. I don't know. And
Gonz, to your point as well, I think a lot of good vets or groomers will work with you. Say, hey, bring your dog in 5-6 times where we're not going to poke and prod. We're not going to groom them. We're just going to put them on the table, give them a roar, take them off, bring them outside again. To work with you for that long-term relationship. Now, again, there is defensive handling, right? I know groomer friends that I need to get this. And they will sometimes say listen, I'm not going to be able to get this cut done. It's not in your dog's safety. It's not in the best interest of getting a good groom. It's best that you take your dog home, train it, work with it, bring it back. But there are also times where they say, I can do it. I need to get this dog cut, whether we're going to use a muzzle, whether they're going to have 2 or 3, groomers help me out here, whatever. But yeah, I think most good vets or groomers will kind of work with you to help accomplish that goal in a time frame that works, where it's not about, hey, let's just crank it and
there are times when you just got to do something for sure, for the sake of the dog, right? Dog chasing cars or whatever, we're not going to do that, right? For sure, you're going to die if you keep doing that.
Yeah, or if a dog's injured,
injured.
Yeah, we have to deal with this right now.
We got to do this right now. I think the key is that we might as trainers always have to apply something that is potentially very uncomfortable to the dog. We got to ride the fine line between uncomfortable versus unethical.
Yes. Yep.
We're always going to, not always, but we're eventually going to hit the situation where we have to do something with the dog that maybe the dog's not going to like. As long as we understand, like, there's potential fallout here.
Yep.
If we understand there's fallout, then we're already like prepared to be like, here's how I'm going to undo the fallout. I needed to do that with this dog, but here's how we're going to bring the dog back out of it so it doesn't just become terrified of it.
And to that point, like, again, I'm a balance trainer. I use tools. I use corrections. I use probably 85, 90% positive reinforcement, but, corrections are there when I need them. Even to go back to what we said at the very beginning about clear expectations, I try not to really give many corrections on day 1, day 2, because number one, I haven't taught the dog what I want instead. So me just correcting it, and it's like, okay, well, what the fuck was that for? You know what? I don't even know.
You can only correct the inaction of a known behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, a correction is for non-compliance of something that's understood.
Exactly.
And for it to be fair, the dog needs to know.
Yeah,
the
they need
person
to know.
he's getting the correction for, some dogs will turn right back at you.
Yeah, they might redirect.
Day 2
absolutely.
is definitely not for corrections.
Yeah, and that's where I also want that rapport with the dog, especially maybe a dog is more fearful, is I want to have that trust already. That way, when I do tell them, cut that out, like, okay, we already kind of have that trust, right? Versus like if I just walk in and go, no, bad, they're going, what the fuck are you? I don't want this guy to come over again, so there is that risk. I think, to play devil's advocate a little bit, just for the sake of the conversation, I think where that balance can come in as well is there are dogs that have learned that this is a self-rewarding behavior, right? Like, let's say you have a resource guarding dog, and they got their bone, and mom comes close, and right away mom's like, okay, we don't leave him alone, he's gonna bite. Yeah. So that dog now has a learned behavior of, if I posture, if I show this intimidation, the trigger goes away, and I get to keep this bone. So why wouldn't I offer that behavior every time, right? And that's where maybe me as a trainer, if I have to be the guinea pig and go in there, or even like have my fake hand on a stick. The dog needs to realize that, hey, growling isn't going to make me not come closer. Like, I might need to show you that that's not going to work with me, or that's not going to work all the time, right? So I think that's where it is, on us as professionals to gauge when to, apply pressure, when like a dog can handle it, what is appropriate, right? Because you're right, there is a time where we might have to do something that a dog doesn't super love, but we feel like, okay, I think it's best for this situation, and if there is fallout, I know how I'm going to rebuild and you'll build it back up. But that's where the nuances can kind of come in, right? Which is easier said than done sometimes. But what do you guys wish more owners knew before hiring a trainer?
That it's a lot of work to train your dog.
Yeah, the consistency of, the effort.
And it's expensive, which people sometimes are afraid of, because everything in our daily life is so expensive.
Yeah, fair.
Just get it right the first time.
Yeah, that too.
It's
work
way
with a
more
blank
expensive.
slate.
Like, a lot of our clients will go to 3 trainers first, didn't work.
Yep.
That's time, right? That's effort that they're putting into the wrong endeavors, and money, and the wrong trainers, right? So get it right the first time if you can.
Totally.
I think, I'm usually trainer number 3 or 4. So people are very reluctant by that point. So I think one of the things that I wish people would know about hiring a trainer is that it is a very specific skill set. And if you are dealing with issues that you can't fix because the YouTube video watched didn't help you, then you need someone who is specialized in that skill set, right? And this is the hard part, but like, dog trainers are just as specialized as doctors or lawyers or mechanics or whatever else, right? It's a very technical field. There's a lot of nuance and feeling and art to it, sure. It's a very technical field, and you have to be very good at what you do to be successful. But people don't see dog trainers as a technically proficient field, right? They're like, oh, but PetSmart said that $25 a week is going to be fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the same. So how we give people that information, I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but that would be what I want them to know.
Yeah.
This is how.
This is how.
This is one part of it, right?
Public education, long form, discussions. Again, a 60-second Instagram clip is good. It's better than nothing. But I think being able to get more in depth about behavioral issues or the industry or the business or whatever will help people hopefully, be more aware of that stuff. And Ryan, to your point as well, a lot of people think that they want to hire a trainer once the bad problems start, right? But that's now you have to undo stuff. That's right.
So much harder. It's so much harder.
So much harder. I would say it's like, imagine if you're trying to quit smoking. If you've been smoking for a week, it's a lot easier than if you've been smoking a pack a day for 10 years.
Way easier if you just don't smoke.
Well, that too. But, a lot of, let's say you get a puppy's going to come with preconditioned problems, crate training, separation anxiety, potty training. These are somewhat unavoidable, right? So
Predictable.
Exactly, right? So know what you're getting into, research your breed, right? Again, we talk about, genetics, breed instinct. If you're getting a collie and, it's nipping at your kids, okay, well, if you're getting a lab that wants to pick up your shoes, so, know what you're getting.
No way.
Right? Like, know what you're getting, know how to utilize your breed's natural motivators. Because again, we talked even in other episodes about, knowing how to not necessarily punish an instinct out of your dog, but maybe learning how to harness that instinct and use it as reward, right? Like, we can't change the stripes on a zebra. Your lab wanting to retrieve and pick things up is not a bad thing. Learn how to apply play drive, right? So I think, learning, knowing what you're getting into before you get into it.
It's hard because we talked a little bit about everybody's getting rescue dogs, and I love rescue dogs. Like, I don't think there's a problem with it. I think that the way some rescues are operating is unethical, but I don't dislike rescue dogs. So you're not going to know a lot of what you're getting, genetically speaking, in a rescue dog because you're getting a designer breed. From Northern Ontario or Northern Manitoba.
Texas.
Texas, yeah. Well, we know what those ones are.
Yeah.
But I think as far as understanding what you have and just working towards giving that dog, whatever that dog is or whatever that mix of dogs is, some kind of an outlet and some kind of a opportunity to work, because all of the dogs are meant to do something. You just have to find out what it is.
Yeah. Do you guys think the dog training industry is too divided, or does the difference of opinion help it evolve? Can it be a positive, or is it like, where do you guys kind of fall?
I think it's publicly divided, but I think that there's a lot of trainers that don't necessarily train the same way or don't necessarily agree with what each other are doing, that have a lot of communication with each other. They're just not vocal about it. Usually the people that are the most vocal are like, I need to make my point clear and I don't agree with what this person is doing. I don't like what you are doing. And they become vocal about it because nobody else cares.
Well, it's like clickbait for them.
Yeah, it's clickbait for them, right?
Yeah.
That's how they get that attention, right? And I think I think you could get a room of like completely force-free trainers and like more balanced trainers. I think they'd agree on a lot of things.
I totally
but they might not
agree.
do it publicly.
Well, I taught for years at a fear-free, force-free facility. Yeah. Like, I agree with a lot of the foundational skill for a lot of that type of training. But I can see in some dogs where frustration grows for people who are unwilling to use any kind of a punisher.
That's right.
And a punisher doesn't mean you have to apply force or fear or pain. A punisher
doesn't mean you're being heavy-handed.
A punisher can be anything. Like we talked.
It could be spatial pressure. It could be something super.
Removal of opportunity to work
absolutely.
is. We talked about that. For my dog, a punishment is removal of opportunity to work.
For sure.
So you can apply structure and criteria and add punishment to make the dog's life more clear, more enjoyable, easier, simpler, straightforward. So I think that I agree. I think that we all have similar philosophies. I think that social media is the downfall of collaboration in a lot of ways, but also it does create community. Like we're all so far apart, but we all like follow each other on social media, and we like kind of know what everybody's up to, and we like when someone has a success, even though we're not best friends. Like I think there's two sides to each coin.
Of course, and to that point, I think force-free, positive only is great to a certain degree. It's great for foundation, right?
For certain dogs,
for sure, for certain dogs, and that's where unfortunately they hit the ceiling and they hit the cap.
Yep,
and that's up to us to help out and just educate the public out there that maybe a force-free trainer isn't good for a certain issue you're having. They might be good for something else, right? So it's just one of those things.
And I agree. I think, Gonz, to your point, there is a lot of like public division, but maybe privately, again, as I said right off the top, I think we're all coming into this industry from the same place of like wanting to help dogs, wanting to work with them and improve their life and quality of life. And so I think that's kind of even one of the main points of like starting this podcast, is to be able to have different and like-minded opinions and have long-form discussion where maybe we agree, maybe we disagree, but we find that middle ground. And honestly, letting the public decide for themselves. Like, not this isn't a debate, but like, let them hear your end, let them hear this end, and then they can make their own choice from there what they think will work for them and what they align with.
And we've talked about for other issues, like if I go to someone for something and their approach is against my ethics, I am going to stop what's happening because it's against what I believe in. And that doesn't mean that person is incorrect. It just means that it doesn't align with what I am willing to do. And you're allowed to do that. Yeah. Don't be disrespectful about it. But
well, that's where I think it, like, again, not to make it political or whatever, but like, I think there is like that cancel culture aspect of social media and whatever, where, and it mostly, generalizing, mostly comes from the positive side where they want to ban prong collars, e-collars. They want to ban certain tools, certain methods, right? They say do it our way or do it no way.
Sure.
And that's, if you're trying to shut down people's livelihoods just because you don't like their tool.
Well, to be fair though, the reason that occurs is because of the dramatic misuse of those tools.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if there was a way to eliminate the dramatic misuse of those tools, then it wouldn't be such a problem. But we can't eliminate that.
Every tool can and is misused.
But that's what I'm saying. Like if there was a way to educate people, like you can buy prong collars at PetSmart.
Sure.
People, they're not even real prong collars. No. Like you can choke your dog out on a slip leash. Like you can.
But what I was going to say though is I think positive only trainer that doesn't like those tools, that's fine. But I think cookie until your dog's 600 pounds is also a misuse of a tool. Well, that's a misuse of food. Yeah. And it can be, there's a hot take right now that if your beagle can't stand up because it's so fat, that's more abusive than giving a prong correction.
Dude, I have wiener dogs. You're preaching the choir on that one.
So again, I think anything then we got to get into like, okay, you got to learn how to use treats. You got to learn how to use anything. Like if we're going to regulate like how to use a certain tool, then you have to regulate everything, right? And that becomes a slippery slope of like who creates
then you have to regulate training.
There you go. And that's exactly. And that's just like who creates the rules, who creates the regulations, right?
Everyone.
Well, that's the problem is they're going to go to people that are certified, but most of the certifications are positive only. That's so, there's not a lot of balanced certifications out there. There's a few, but it's the main current prior animal behavior. Like most of them are positive only, right? So that's where that slippery slope can get real slippery
but these created certifications were just created. Nobody is governing them.
No, but they're recognized. They're like, I can make
but there's no governing body that recognizes them.
There's not, but
it's the same as.
But for the uneducated pet owner, that's enough.
That's right.
I agree, but like you could just write letters next to your name, and they'd be
could.
like, "Oh, great!"
Sure.
Like they're not going to go, and they're not going to check who passed this test.
But for someone looking for help, that's what they're looking for. We know that those mean nothing, right? But they don't know that.
I wouldn't say nothing, but generally speaking, they're not.
It's not the be all end all.
Yeah.
They definitely don't define a good trainer versus a not good trainer.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So someone who doesn't know that is going, I need help with my dog. Here's this guy who has a social media account and a website, and that's it. And here's this person who has 15, 25 different letters. Well, I think that's more legit, even though it might not necessarily be the case.
Sure.
So, what those trainers do is they rely on that. They rely on, like, look at all the letters behind my name. That's how skilled and educated I am, right? And that's not necessarily the wrong approach, but I think a better approach for people that don't necessarily have the certifications or want to show people that those certifications do not define the standard of good training is put out the dogs. Yeah. Train your dogs, train your clients' dogs, put out the dogs so that when people do look at those accounts, they go, this trainer has 5 posts and it's 2 pictures of the same dog in 25 different letters. And here's another trainer who has no letters behind their name. They use e-collars and prong collars, but they have 150 posts, and they're all videos of these dogs changing. I'm going to go with the one like the proof is in the pudding.
It is.
Right?
In the
so
pudding,
we need to do more of that instead of being like, 4-3 people are so crazy. No, let's focus on what we're doing.
Our platform is not tearing other people.
Exactly.
Down.
Yeah,
it's not.
You're right, and that's a good point. I was actually just going to touch on that. I think that's where it gets into like, well, either do it my way or do it no way, right? You're either going to use my way or tools are going to be banned. And, it's maybe not a good analogy, but, I remember when I used to, at the bar and, talking to someone, and I had this friend who's not great at flirting. And you know what they did? They don't know how to make themselves look better, so they try to make me look worse.
Right.
Right? They're like that annoying friend at the club that like doesn't know how to run their own game, so they're gonna just try to tear you down. And, and that's like, okay, if that's the only way you know how to make yourself look better, says more about you than it does about me.
That's
right? But I think that's where it gets into like, obviously everyone cites their own studies. Like there's studies saying, aversives are going to cause this, and there's studies saying positive, whatever, all the different studies.
Go ahead and let's do that with dominance theory.
Well, exactly. It's been debunked.
By the same guy who created it. Like, how can you even quote it anymore?
Well, I think that's the thing is positive only says, I have science and facts on my side. Balance says, I have science and facts on my side. Balance says, okay, let's teach their own. Positive only says, no, it's my way or no way. Right. And I think that's where we get into like, one side wants to like cancel the other out. A balance trainer never says, hey, you're not allowed to use positive. Right. But you're trying to tell us you're not allowed to do this. Right. I think that's where it can be like that cancel, like, either do it my way or do it no way. And I think that's,
I think
it's
too,
tricky.
like with social media stuff, like there's lots of trainers that I follow that I don't agree with their way of training, ethically speaking. But I also am not training the dogs that they're training.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have an opinion publicly about it. Or I see lots of times people posting things that are just wrong, so wrong. So like that they're just publicly, they shouldn't be telling people this information. And a lot of times people will publicly kind of go down that rabbit hole against them. And for me, like if I'm a dog trainer and I see something that I believe is harmful to the general public, I might message that person privately and say, hey, like maybe they just don't know that they're wrong or whatever. They're literally trying to do something good for people and this is their experience, but they just don't know. But I'm not going to go publicly and screenshot their video and share it and talk bad about them. And
That's a mature response.
I'm not at all that person. I don't want people to know who I am.
To
People all the time are like, do you know this person? I'm like, no, and I don't want to.
To your point, though, I think, messaging somebody privately is great if that person is open and receptive.
Even if they're not. They don't have to be.
Fair.
You're coming into their life without permission or request. So if they decide they don't want to receive it, they are not obligated to do so.
And I think that's, again, we talk about growth and changing mindsets is, again, although I don't identify as positive only, I don't hate positive only. I can learn a lot from positive only trainers. Even if I might not agree with 100% of their philosophy, I can take nuggets and go, oh, you know what? That's a good point. I should apply that. I could try that, right? I don't have to, I think, again, these days, there's always that like kind of political back end of it. But like, I think a lot of people just want an echo chamber, right? They want to follow and hear people that agree with them and only validate what they think. And they don't want, and I'm happy to talk to people that I don't agree with or don't do things the same way or can tell me, hey, why don't you do it like that? Or, have that open, I want to at least think of things in a different way. I don't always have to agree with it, but I want to be, I never want to get to the point where I'm not able to look at things from a different perspective.
And one of the first things we teach our apprentices is our way is not the way.
Yeah.
It's a way.
And that's healthy.
Right.
That's healthy. I think that's great. Right. And, we were talking about the social media and, having proof. I think that's one of the other, slippery narratives of positive only is they say, well, the results don't matter, right? It's about the dog's humane, how does the dog feel? How are we?
I do believe mindset matters. So
I
don't disagree with that.
But we can't say results don't matter because when somebody's hiring you, they're hiring you for the results, right?
Right. But there are companies that have slogans like results-based dog training. And I believe that is not a great slogan to have because you want results, but like
not at the expense
of something else. Like, I mean, at the expense of the negative behavior you don't want, but not at the expense of well-being or mindset or something. Like, to me, there's just, we've talked about this. There's so many nuances to training to just say one thing. It's like, it's
limiting.
It's not only that, but it can also be misleading. Like, sure, this is X for this situation, but it's Y for another.
Yep.
It's so hard to just say like one way or the other. Like you just can't.
Gotta be adaptable. All right. I think we're right about there time-wise. I want to thank you guys all for coming on the podcast today, and hopefully you guys will come on future episodes as well. This was great. I wish we had more time because this was, very free-flowing, and I enjoyed it. Why don't we kind of go around if you want to plug, your Instagram, your website, where people can find you. I'll make sure to add the links and your tags and stuff in the video. But Michelle, why don't we start with you and we'll kind of go around.
Oh boy, don't find me, I'll find you.
Okay.
On Instagram, I am Hellhounds, HELLEHOUNDZ, Z if you're American. Yeah, that's where I'll be. Just chilling, doing my shit.
Perfect.
You can find me mostly on Instagram, Okami Canine, OKAMI, Canine spelled out, not K9. You'll recognize if it's my account because you'll see a fuck ton of Shibas on it.
All right. That's the indicator, Shibas.
Nice and simple. noblecanine.ca. Letter K, number 9.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today on the Pet to Pal podcast, and tune in for future episodes.